All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the California Nutrition Incentive Program Expansion Program for WIC and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Incentive Benefits. We'll be giving just a brief overview of the RFP, and this will be recorded and available. You are welcome to put any questions that you have in the chat. You can also come off mute and ask those questions at that time. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So we'll just give you a brief interview of the program and of the application. We'll discuss a bit about the farmers markets cards, which are how WIC and senior benefits are now distributed as of last year. We'll go through the actual just step-by-step proposal sections in the application and talk a bit about the budget narrative, cost sharing, allowable costs, and then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So the expansion program is a smaller set of the California Nutrition Incentive Program that overall encourages the purchase and consumption of healthy California-grown fruits and vegetables and nuts by nutrition benefit clients, including CalFresh, WIC, WIC FMNP, and senior FMNP clients at certified farmers markets and small businesses. And our CDFA and the Nutrition Incentive Program offers grants to organizations to provide these incentives directly to the shoppers and also supports the program operations at the markets and facilitates outreach.
Carrie,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm not sure if this is the case for everyone. The screen is not showing the top part of the slides. I'm not sure if there's a way to refocus that so we can see the whole slide.
Is that better? No.
I can see it just fine.
Oh, okay. It might be just me issue. Sorry, everyone. Keep going. Sorry about that, Carrie.
No problem. If there's another issue, just let me know, or people can write it in the chat. Okay, so there's, the CNIP and then the CNIP Expansion, which is really just focusing in on the WIC and seniors, and we partner with Department of Health and Human Services on that program. So this is kind of the landing page for the California Nutrition Incentive Program, and you'll see there on it, the 2026 CNIP Expansion request for proposals is now open, so that's why you're all hopefully here today. And then you'll see these links for the RFP that will talk about the two different tracks and then also the budget calculator. So you can click on all of those to open them, and we'll go through those in a bit more detail. Just an introduction to the team. At the Nutrition Incentive Program, I'm Carrie Waterman. I'm the Food Access Lead. I support grants management and partnerships among the grantees, also sharing kind of impact stories and hoping to facilitate more kind of grantee to grantee communication as well, and getting the program to more places in California that need it. And I'll let Sarah and Mayur introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Hansen, also with the Farm to Fork team here at CDFA. Been working on CNIP since its inception, and I also oversee some of our other food access grant programs.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mayur. I have been with CNIP in CDFA for 3 years now, and I am the CNIP Grant Program Coordinator. So I oversee pretty much the program part of the grant program and also the day-to-day interaction and communications with the grantees and all of your reports and all of the fun documents that you have to deal with. Yeah.
And Winnie's not with us today, but she leads the invoicing and compliance for the grants. So kind of on the detailed budget management, you'd be working more directly with Mayur and Winnie on those programs. And then, as I mentioned, we also partner with the Department of Public Health, and Nancy is the coordinator there for the WIC division. So she's an excellent contact. She, I think, will be joining hopefully the webinar later, but is definitely available by email if you need to reach out to her. And then Katie with CDFA helps run the seniors program, and I believe she's on the call as well, and is really a wonderful resource that can help answer questions. We've also kind of pulled some of the information from their websites to share with you. So this is a really great interagency program that is helping support these shoppers. We've been running this program for a few years, and last year we did a 1-year grant because they were piloting these new electronic benefits. So these are the organizations that were awarded either Track 1 or Track 2 expansion grants, really throughout the state. And I'd recommend to any applicants to also kind of reach out to them. A lot of them piloted the first programs, and are great resources to kind of figure out if you're opening these programs up in new locations. So for this RFP, the Department of Food and Agriculture is seeking proposals from qualified entities to support nutrition incentive shoppers and or to distribute those incentives using the WIC fruit and vegetable benefits, which is also known as cash value benefits or CVB, and then the WIC FMNP or the senior FMNP benefits to purchase California fruits and vegetables at authorized certified farmers markets. And the program is really trying to reach communities in the following categories, which have low access or low income populations, and then have a high percent of eligibility for those incentives, and are also, encumbering high rates of diet-related diseases, obesity, diabetes, asthma, these types of things that we see in urban areas and rural areas. So those are things to kind of keep in mind as you're writing the RFP and giving us an idea of the shoppers and the communities that are going to benefit from these incentives. So what's new as of kind of this year and for next year is that both the senior and the WIC cards are now distributed through farmers markets cards, and that's what they look like in the lower part of the screen. The shoppers receive their incentives directly on their cards, and for a farmer or a vendor, they'll need a smartphone or a device to access the internet for participants to be able to issue the cards and to be scanned at the market. And then applicants can only apply for one of these seasons just because this is still a new process and we're kind of onboarding a lot of farmers and vendors, that we're just going to be offering this funding for 1 year, a 1-year duration of basically next year. So April, it's really almost 9 months actually, because it's just really one season. And just to give you a familiarity with the CDPH website and their information on the farmers markets, you can order farmers market signs, click on that PDF, and that will open up to request if you're offering this program. So this is the type of support that CDPH will provide, information for farmers markets and how to register, and they're really kind of a central contact for this program. And then, as I mentioned, the Senior Farmers Market Program is connected to the WIC and runs through CDFA. And this is where Katie is a great contact. And they developed, let's see if this will work.
We're not hearing the audio.
Not hearing the audio. Okay. I'll let, we can maybe put that link in the chat. And this is just a kind of a video that they developed to help shoppers, senior shoppers, understand kind of the process in getting registered and then using their cards at the markets. And there's, this is kind of an overview of what that would look like. And this is developed just for the seniors, but I believe that the system and this process would be very similar for WIC as well. So farmers would apply and complete an authorization training. The market managers, I believe, also would have to do this if they're going to be distributing these electronic benefits. And that can really help, where the market managers can help vendors in that, first uses of the technology. And then the seniors or the WIC recipients would go to their, would be certified for their eligibility in the program. And those benefits would be issued at a senior or WIC center onto their farmers market card. They would bring that card to the market and they could be purchase eligible foods. And the farmers market vendor will scan the card, and then those benefits would be digitally transferred from the card to the farmer. So this basically allows that money to go directly to the farmer at the point of sale. So this is quite different than receiving paper vouchers and redeeming them at the end of the market. For the CNIP program, we will still allow for Track 1 applicants to use some type of paper voucher, but being aware that this is how most of the WIC and senior benefit programs are being distributed electronically is to keep in mind. So as we mentioned, there's 2 tracks, just like we had last year as well. Track 1 is to actually distribute the incentives. So you would apply for incentive funding, and then you would facilitate that funding release at the markets and through vendors. And then you could also support activities such as outreach, marketing, assistance to the farmers using the new electronic software, and assistance to shoppers. And this can really be a wide range of support activities. And we're open to, if you have other ideas that we haven't mentioned, please feel free to. So just helping getting everybody onboarded and getting shoppers there. Track 2 is basically all of that support, but no incentives being distributed. So you would just be doing that additional support. So hopefully that's clear, and we'll mention it again. Track 1 is incentives and support. Track 2 is just support without incentives. So just a brief overview of the application, which you'll see in the RFP, and these are the sections that we'll go through: the funding and duration, who can apply, timeline, again, the 2 tracks, a bit about cost sharing, the proposal and its sections, how the proposal will be reviewed in the evaluation and the criteria. And then we'll also go through the specific sections in the template for how those will be completed, and how there's a slight difference than for Track 1 and Track 2. So for this year, for 2026, we anticipate funding up to $1.75 million in availability of awards. Last year, we awarded $750,000. So this is an increase. We saw a lot of applications, and we're really excited to distribute more for the program this coming year. The funds requested should range from $10,000 to $500,000 as a minimum and maximum. And the grant duration is really, as I mentioned, the 9 months, and the funds can be used from the beginning of April 2026, and then have to be spent by December 31st of 2026. So eligibility for who can apply: either certified farmers markets authorized to accept WIC FMNP and or SFMNP benefits. And that can be organizations working with those farmers markets and processing those, if that's happening at those markets. And then also nonprofits that are working with markets or supporting shoppers to get there. And just to note, all the applicants must agree to participate and cooperate with CNIP's tracking and evaluation of the program. And that may be more relevant if you're distributing incentives for Track 1. And just to note, this is a reimbursement-based grant program. So that's where you'll incur the cost and then invoice and be reimbursed. To apply, you have to be in good standings with CDFA, USDA, and the state of California, incurring no violations with SNAP authorization or direct marketing programs or other CDFA grant contracts. Basically, just like no pending financial issues with any of these agencies. And just to look at the timeline, today is October 9th for the webinar. The proposal is due November 4th at 5 p.m. and that'll be submitted by email. And then we hope to have preliminary selection in January with the funds available for that season starting April 1st and then expended by December 31st. As I mentioned, Track 1 can distribute the CNIP incentives to WIC, FMNP, and SFMNP shoppers at certified farmers markets and offer those supporting activities. So these can be anything from, mobile hotspots, setting up things like that, training and technical assistance to farmers using the software, outreach and technical assistance to the shoppers, as we mentioned. And again, we're open to other ideas depending on what the needs are of the market that you're working in. Same thing here, as we mentioned, just Track 2 is just everything from the support, but without the direct incentives. Last year, we had a couple organizations that were really successful in kind of partnering with Track 1 recipients as well, and then offered that support at those markets. From what we saw from last year, I think there's a lot of time needed from staff to work with the farmers as they're learning the new system. And that's something I think to keep in mind as an applicant. So like give space and time for that to happen. Cost sharing is not required for the grant. It is encouraged to demonstrate that the program has other support, and it will be considered in the technical review. So it's just basically in consideration. And this can take the form of cash, materials, or in-kind support. So staff time, rental space. So if you have funding from other sources and your staff is going to be supporting this program as well, you can write in those hours. And it can be from the applicant itself or from third-party support. And the costs incurred prior to the start of the project or unrelated to the proposal will not be considered as a match or cost share. And we did have one question about this, if yes, staff time could be considered as a cost share, and yes, it can. And just kind of on the details of how to submit the proposal, it should include all the sections outlined in the template and the budget spreadsheet and submitted in a Microsoft Word document and Excel. And the attachments can also be submitted in the same form. The proposals are limited to 15 pages, not including the budget narrative. And yeah, we can disqualify applicants if they submit much longer applications. And then how to submit the proposal. You will do this by email to the CA Farm to Fork email address before 5 o'clock on November 4th. And just please use the 2026 California Nutrition Incentive Program expansion proposal in the subject line. And the proposal must include all required components in one email. So that's the template and the budget spreadsheet. For eligibility, we don't accept mailed or faxed copies, and applicants will receive a confirmation that we received your application within 2 business days. We're offering to answer questions now in the webinar. We'll also have FAQs available. You can reach out to us by email if you have any questions about the application. However, we cannot offer support for actually writing or submitting the application. So once we receive the applications, we'll conduct an initial administrative review of the submitted proposals and determine which applications meet those administrative requirements. So these are just more technical. Are you a certified, farmer's market? Do you meet these qualifications? And then if so, they go into a technical review to evaluate the merit of the grant based on the scoring criteria that's in the RFP. And then these are just all the kind of potential disqualifications that you can keep in mind that could occur in that administrative review if there's incorrect attachments. Generally, we'll try, potentially to reach out and get anything that's missing, but this could disqualify you. So just keep in mind to look at these factors. And there's also an appeals process that you can appeal with if you feel you were rejected. And this has to be done in writing and signed by the party named on the application. And this can be submitted by email or by mail to the CDFA office there. And all applicants will be notified regarding their selection no later than, we're hoping, January 31st of next year. And CDFA reserves the right to work with selected applicants to modify their proposals, including project budget and scope. So that does happen where we'll sometimes get applications and need to maybe revise some of the budget sections. And so that's also a potential where maybe there would be a reduced amount of markets or a reduced amount of funding. There's also the potential for more funding. So those things can happen at that stage. And this is these are the details of the administrative review, that initial review process that'll happen with the grant applications. Again, whether you're an eligible entity, your ability to process the transactions, timeline and budget are within the guidelines, agree to participate in the evaluation reporting, in good financial standings, and complete answers to the RFP, submitted on time, and includes costs within allowable ranges. Sorry. Okay. All right. And then, so that's the administrative review. And then the technical review is fairly similar for the two tracks. There are some differences just because track one has the incentives. And these are going to be kind of the scoring criteria. So these are really good to review as you're writing the grant and looking at seeing where those different point distributions will be. You can see the budget has 20 points, project proposal 15. So those are all in the track templates on how to answer these. The difference is like the operations and some of those around the actual incentives. And just to keep in mind too, track one can also offer that support as well. And then for track two, you'll see similar slightly different distributions of the scoring criteria, but overall fairly similar for the project proposal, the activities, the outreach. This will be more about what type of support you'll provide. And that can be, again, both kind of from the farmer and vendor side and the market manager side, as well as the shopper and benefit recipient side. And some more reporting requirements, invoicing. As I mentioned, this is a reimbursement grant program. Invoices are submitted quarterly, and grantees can expect to be reimbursed within 45 days after the invoices are approved in most circumstances. Track one recipients will be required to submit monthly reports on that incentive distribution. And we reserve the right to modify reporting and requirements during the course of the project. A final report will be required for all recipients, track one and track two, within 60 days following the completion of the project. and it should include a reasonable detailed description of the work completed, an assessment of potential for future viability, a final budget report, and a description of problems and if any were encountered, which could have affected the completion of the project. And we also then could potentially have a follow-up survey of funded projects in order to determine long-term impact. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Meyer to get into kind of the details of the proposal sections. And you'll see at the top we have track 1, and then if there's a difference, you'll see those noted in kind of a purple color.
Cool. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, thank you, Carrie, for covering for pretty much a majority of what the application will look like too. The next couple of slides are just going to be the proposal section. So I'm gonna brave through most of them, but I am gonna point out some of the notes for the application that may be, like, if you're applying for the first time, you might not know some of these smaller details. So just a note for the first segment, just throughout the application, we do have characters limit as a guidance, just in case you are unsure of how much to input in the application. And again, keeping in mind the track 1 and track 2, so making sure that you are using the correct template for your application. And one thing I do want to point out for the applicant background part is the organization's legal name. So if you are an organization that is implementing the program and you are doing business as, or you're operating the program under another entity that is administering the grant and the contract, we are asking for the organization that is administering the grant and the contract as the organization's legal name. So if you're doing business as, or if you're under the organization, you can also just add another segment under the organization's legal name to indicate that the relationship between the organizations. And the next part, next slide, locations. If you need to add an attachment, if you have a lot of sites that will be distributing incentives, then you can also include an Excel sheet. And these are the sites that will be for track 1. These are the sites that you are distributing incentives at. For track 2, these are the sites that you're providing the technical assistance to. So again, important to use the correct application for which track you're applying for. Responsible party contact. This is the folk that we'll be in communication with, but most importantly, the name and the contact information that you're going to have here is also the person that will be signing the agreement if we were to execute an agreement with your organization. So that's the contact that we're looking for. And again, just for the rest of the application, the proposal, goals, and intended outcomes, make sure to just sort of go back to look at the criteria and see how it's graded, and being able to really portray and describe the goals in the projects, the project goals and intended outcomes for your program. Slide. Again, this is just an additional piece to the project goals and outcomes, adding the timeline and the activity in the table. You can also extend to add more column in the application. Next. This is the part, this section, technical assistance and support. That's where it starts to differ between both track. If you are track 1, again, distributing incentives, and with the options of providing technical assistance as well. For track 2, you're telling us how you are going to provide technical assistance. And that's for section G. For section H, operations. So this is where track 1, you will have this section. Track 2, because you're not distributing incentives, there's no operation section. So again, just the difference between both application. So yeah, if you're doing track 1, describe how the incentive will target California grown fruits and vegetables, how the incentives will be distributed, and how incentives will be tracked. And you're also telling us and describing your incentive design. How are you tracking California grown fruits and vegetables? How frequently will shoppers be eligible for incentives? What will the value of the incentive be, and how will it relate to the amount of benefits spent? What is the maximum incentive value a shopper can receive? So we have some examples there as well. And then also, along with the operation, you're also describing the technology that you're going to use to distribute and track incentives, whether that is token, paper coupon. You're also describing the mechanism that you are using to track as well, and also to keep accountability. So whether that is having the staff training who will be doing the tracking of the paper vouchers or the tokens, is it electronic tracking systems? And we're looking for how are you tracking, again, California grown fruits and vegetables? How are you tracking eligible shoppers and also eligible participants to not exceed set limits of incentives? And again, just a reminder, if you have any questions about any of these sections, please feel free to throw them into the chat. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. And also, I know Sarah is going through them as well, too. So feel free to throw your questions in the chat. Okay. And then for track 1 and track 2, so this is where they come back. But we're going to have, again, there's going to be a little bit of the difference. So track 1, you're going to be in section I, and then track 2, you're still at H. I think the only corresponding documents with those section would be the budget spreadsheet, which I will go over in a bit. But aside from that, again, just making sure that you're on the right application and you're working on the right segment if you are yourself referring to any of these segments in the application. Yeah, showing community geography reach, and then continuing on to communities reach. Yes, we're also just continue to describe how your organization is approaching diversity, equity, and inclusion in the project. How will you ensure all community members will be reached? What measure will you take to ensure how low resource and underserved groups are targeted for this project? And then we're also asking for folks to provide any previous experience that you have, describe experience processing EBT transactions, WIC transactions, WIC FMNP transaction, and or senior FMNP transaction, working with CalFresh, WIC, senior FMNP farmers, vendors, and or market managers. These are all accounted for previous experience that you have. And providing any additional partnership folks that you're working with. We also have an optional question for you to tell us how you hear about this grant program. We always love to hear and know how folks learn about the grant program, because we do our best to outreach, but I think that word of mouth and also community outreach is so important. So we love to be able to hear that if you're able to provide that. And again, for the cost share and the matching funds, it's not required, but it is encouraged. And if you do include cost share or matching funds, we will use that into the grant scoring as well. Cool. And then with the budget narrative, so there is where the next slide is going to include this, but we are asking for folks to also submit a spreadsheet, which is on the website with all of the application materials. This is called the CNIP budget calculator and overview. The goal is just to be able to streamline what you have calculated to go into the budget narrative, and then to also streamline that process for us when we are if we select your proposal and we also turn it into the agreement. So the goal is just to streamline that process. Again, that is available there. And I do want to highlight that we'll see it later, but there are some slight changes to the budget sheet for folks who did apply last year, and some slight changes to the budget narrative as well. So yes, that is the spreadsheet. If you go to our website, the link is there. The calculator, so where you are putting your budget, that is in tab B. That's pretty clear there, but just in case, you have 3 different tabs. There's an example, and then there's a quick overview just to see the numbers, but really everything that you're inputting is going to be in tab B. If you are using your own spreadsheet for your budget, that's okay. If you would like to attach that or create a tab or copy and paste that somewhere in this spreadsheet as well, that would also be helpful. But up to you if you want to submit that. Okay. And so for the rest of the budget narrative, again, just lead organization. That's the organization that is administering the grant, and project director, that is the person that is signing off on any official documents. Cool. So the first section for the personnel, and the part of the change that we did this year for the budget narrative is that we removed the total budget, combining the total match and the total request. So we're only asking you to put in the total requested from CDFA into your budget narrative. We would still like to see the match and the total and everything in the budget spreadsheet, but just for the budget narrative, you just have to put the total requested. And again, each of the section has like its notes there. So go through each of them, making sure that you're putting it in the correct section. If you have any questions about any of these notes or any of the link, please let us know. And for section D, incentives, again, track 1 is the only application that should have this section. Track 2, you shouldn't have this in your application. However, there is a segment in the budget spreadsheet that has incentives. So for track 2, folks, just don't put anything in the budget for the incentive. And then other direct, I kind of want to go to the next 2 slide if you can for subaward, Carrie. Yes. Okay. This was an error on our part. We duplicated the subawards. It generally goes under the other direct costs, but then we also have like its own section as well. So just wherever you put your subawards, if you put it under the other direct section, make sure that you totaled it up accordingly to the other direct costs. If you have it in the subaward section by itself, then just wherever you put it, just differentiate the total cost. Okay, and then that's next. Cool. And then total direct costs, indirect. Again, just a recommendation. You don't have to do it this way, but I highly recommend starting with the spreadsheet, doing all of your numbers and calculation there, and then just putting the final number on the budget justification, and then providing all of your description for each of your line items in the budget justification.
Great. Thank you, Meyer. And I just wanted to note too, on the indirect cost, they're capped at 15% unless the applicant has a state negotiated agreement. And that can be like a university or other organizations. Sometimes we'll have a different agreed upon rate. And then we're almost done here. Just wanted to give you all some other information about different CDFA grants that might be of interest to you or some of the colleagues and organizations that you work with. The California Underserved and Small Producers Program, that grant is currently open for applications. The Farm to School Incubator Grant Program, it is currently closed, but that usually opens every year. The Specialty Crop Block Grant Program just actually closed in September, but they do have an additional assistance for historically underrepresented organizations that will open up next month. So you're welcome to check out some of the information on those websites. And then we also wanted to mention the Proposition 4 climate bond. This was approved in 2024 as a $10 billion bond designed to safeguard communities, natural resources, particularly in the face of climate change. It covers a wide range of funding from kind of water, wildlife preservation, protecting biodiversity, also looking at agriculture and communities, urban communities. So a wide range of agencies will get this. Some of this bond funding, and CDFA is one of those agencies. And this will help support some of the existing programs that they already have going, like the Healthy Soils program. And it'll also support mobile markets. So that could be something that some of you may be interested in, and you can sign up for updates. We're really looking to see some of this more information, public comment, and some of these RFPs coming out early next spring. So there's still some opportunities there. For infrastructure, things like, simple things like tents to permanent structures could be funded under this proposition. And we just really wanted to thank you for your interest in the CNIP expansion program. We're happy to see new names and new faces on this call today, and we're excited to be funding more of this. It's really been beneficial, I think, to the recipients and to the farmers as well. And with that, we'll open it up to any questions and comments. And if Katie's on the call too and wants to add anything, or any of the previous grantees. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I see Daniel Chavez. Do you want to ask your question? I see a hand up.
Yes, thank you. And appreciate all the details in the RFP walkthrough. That's really helpful. I'm not sure if this question is too specific to our situation, but we recently partnered with an organization, a university that was granted funds this past cycle, but has extended those funds until next year. And so there's this overlap in us applying for it in tandem with them and the incentives. But there was a bit of items that we would like to be covered in the new application. And so I was just wondering if there would be any issue in having like two awards at the same time, or or if, because it's mostly just covering incentives, if it would be okay to apply for some of the technical assistance and, most importantly, senior nutrition incentives, which isn't covered in the extended grant.
Yeah, I think Sarah can clarify, but that should be fine as long as there's no direct overlap of funding. If there's a previous grant that was operating incentives, you're applying for a new one that's going to offer technical assistance to support the distribution of those incentives, that should be fine.
Okay, perfect.
Sarah?
And
Yeah, I would just make sure in your application you're sort of clear to make sure that there is no overlap. So say like that grant is covering the WIC incentives, but none of the sort of technical support or administration. You're writing that into your current grant, as well as potentially senior incentives if you're going for track one, or you could just do the track two. But for us, it's just mostly having a sort of clear line between the two. So there's no worry about commingling of the funds.
perfect, thank you.
And Lori, I see your hand up.
No, thank you. My question is about eligibility. And, we're from these, very rural counties. And if for seniors in particular, the eligibility for the benefits is like so much bigger than the actual distributed benefits. So, they're minuscule. So how do we handle that?
That one is always difficult because I've got Katie on the line, so she can sort of jump in terms of how we distribute, we being CDFA, the actual FMMP benefits. As the CNIP team, we can only match the benefits that have been distributed. We are working, part of the incentives that we're giving towards the federal benefits will go on the card, which will allow us to expand the number of seniors, but it is still the need is always unmet. That one can be really difficult for rural counties just because the numbers aren't as high. We do recognize that. So like looking at the application, right, we're not going to expect your incentive levels to be as high as an urban area where there might be, a larger number of seniors able to spend the incentives, things like that. But we unfortunately don't have any sort of direct power to direct more of those benefits because it is just unfortunately so limited. But I don't know, Katie, if you want to add anything on that.
No, nothing to add. Basically, the need is so much higher than what's available. So that's good to hear that you take into account that you're not expecting LA level numbers for a county like Modoc. And especially in rural areas too, I feel like a transportation service would be really amazing because I know that there's not a lot of authorized farmers markets and transportation is just a huge issue everywhere, but especially for seniors in rural areas. So kind of went on a tangent, but yeah, I wish we had more benefits.
Love it. Yeah.
Where I'd land.
So the eligibility is the big eligibility, or do we talk about eligibility in terms of how many people will be receiving benefits? Just for the purposes of writing the grant.
Well, for the grant itself, the eligibility is just based off of your organization, but in terms of like who you're trying to reach, sorry, is that your like
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be sort of like the seniors. We could only provide incentives to seniors who actually have the benefits. That's
Gotcha.
written in statute
So
for
we
us.
talk
So
about that
we're
number.
for
Okay.
that number there. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Katie.
I don't know if there are other hands. I tried to get through as many questions in the chat, but I'm sure I missed some. There's some that just came in. Can we use the funds to purchase a company vehicle to provide or to provide the transportation services? That one has not come up before. We definitely do allow folks to do transportation. Oftentimes it's sort of rented buses or contracting that out. That would have to be justified as in the justification for equipment. So that might be a little tricky. I'll have to sort of think on that one and get back. And then we partner with ride sharing services similar to that to provide transportation. I believe that can also be written into the grant, but you would have to sort of justify those costs and how that would sort of work on a reimbursement level.
I can just add there, sorry, I think for the equipment, there generally is a limit less than $5,000, but we can, I have the feeling that I don't think a vehicle is allowable, but we can get back to you and post that in the FAQs, but that's where I'm thinking, Sarah. I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, that one we'll get back to you all and post on the FAQs once we research it. But that would be a large cost for this grant program for sure. Yeah, Shirley.
Hi. I'm wondering, it's good to see you all still there. We were a grantee in 23-24, and last year we didn't submit, and we found that overall the program was really beneficial, and it's nice to see all your faces and hopefully be able to work with you again. We are going to be submitting as a collective this year for the whole county, where there are 6 farmers markets that are included. Mm-hmm. So we've got some logistics to work out and some technical issues. But my question is, will we know when the incentives, or are they, I know you've been going through a lot of challenges this year yourself, and the incentives came out, or the money came out very late in our season, this last season, and we're wondering whether it is going to start a lot earlier. Like our markets open mid-May, and we didn't have anything to give them until like August. So are they going to be receiving their funds prior to market opening? So we can support them through the whole season.
Yeah, Katie, I see just came on camera. I think that was mostly a delay this year because of the new electronic benefits. So I anticipate that it's going to be back closer to schedule. But Katie, if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, that's essentially it. We delayed a lot of the distribution of the benefits because the farmers weren't ready, and we didn't want a situation where, although it's still happening a little bit, where the seniors get to the market and there's no farmers who can accept the benefits. So from the senior side, we have all the cards already for next season. Hopefully there's a critical mass of farmers who are onboarded. And so, I can't say like an exact date, but definitely earlier in 90% of the counties than it was this year, because all the ducks are in a row now that when they were definitely not in May last year.
Okay. Is there a way to communicate with the distribution so that we know when actually they have been received? Yes?
Yeah, definitely. I think you can reach out. We can provide that contact. And I'm speaking from the SFMMP, the senior side. We can provide that contact information to you, and so you can coordinate with them to know when benefits are being distributed, maybe even have it distributed at the market, which is nice. But yes, definitely recommend being in communication with the folks who are distributing.
Yeah, distributed at the market. Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I've got a quick question. What's the backlog of farmer onboarding on the WIC end looking like? Because that's one of our limitations right now is only half of our farmers were able to really get onboarded, and now there's like a huge backlog of people who are waiting. So I have a question about that. And then also we did distribution of incentives this year with paper vouchers, and I heard earlier in the session about more folks moving to electronic, and I was wondering if we could get a sort of just a quick overview about like what are the sort of electronic options that are available to folks like us that instead of paper vouchers.
Kim, you want to handle the onboarding and then I'll switch over?
Yeah, perfect. I actually don't know off the top of my head what the backlog is. I know for seniors we have like 340-ish farmers that are like fully completed all the registration steps on the vendor portal. I think it's, I don't want to say, but I can look that number up for you. I don't know it off the top of my head, Laura, but I think it's a couple hundred that are in the queue at some point. They've turned in their application and they're somewhere between application and doing a transaction, but I can look it up.
Yeah, and we're trying to onboard them, but we can't until they've been processed. So.
And then in terms of your other question about the electronic, so all now seniors and WIC participants will have an extra benefit on their card, which we're sort of doing separately, right? Working with Katie for seniors and Nancy for WIC. For seniors, that's actually, I believe we're just sticking to the $50 sort of benefit amount, but it will show that there's that it will allow us to hit more seniors that way. Well, as we, so the federal benefits can be stretched further. So that will be sort of happening already on the back end. The senior might not sort of be aware of that because they don't really care where the funding's coming from. It's just that there's $50 on their cards. Similar, like the WIC, they'll be able to sort of see in their app that they have like the WIC FMMP benefit. They'll have their CNIP benefit and their cash value benefit that they can sort of spend down. So that will be available to participants. And that's something that CDFA is working with CDPH and our partners in CDFA on the back end. So that's why we have this sort of track 2 application where you can be like, great, like folks are already getting some of these funds on their cards. We want to support though in terms of outreach, getting them to the market, helping them use it, helping the farmers understand how that works. And then for folks that do want to bring more money to those shoppers, that's where we have the track 1 where they can still do some of those supporting activities, but also say, hey, like here's some paper vouchers or some tokens, et cetera. We don't have the ability right now to add additional electronic funds to just certain shoppers. So it's sort of across the board. We're working with the FMMP programs on sort of that equal amount. If that answers your question.
Yeah, that was helpful. We're currently doing the paper voucher matching for the WIC expansion. So I was just wondering if there were like, if people are doing digital match instead, because I'm just trying to wrap my brain around it. But it sounds like it's mostly a script-based incentive match still. Okay, great.
Jenny, I see your hand up.
Now, my question is, I know that WIC, and you may not answer it, but I feel like it's important for people when they're writing the grant, had certain counties that were pilots that were getting the benefits. Is it fully going to be expanded statewide so that when, like that's the plan right now?
I believe that's the case. Nancy, I don't think has been able to join yet, so we can sort of get back and add that to the FAQ section. But I know it was just such a really fast process to get the system up and running, which is why they did just the pilot this year, so they could at least get some benefits out. but I know the intention is to have it statewide. We will check with Nancy and post that with the FAQs.
And then my other question was, I know like I think it was last weekend Nancy came to like Chico's site and to help do education for vendors, but I feel bad. It was almost like a waste of time. We were contracted to do that. And so I'm wondering if somebody's like track two or funded like that cross communication can happen just because does take a lot of resources to train farmers, and I just don't want people to have wasted trip to markets where we're like, we got it handled, like we're their touch point at this point to get them through all this process.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we definitely try to sort of communicate some of that with our partners, but there's been a lot of moving pieces with the transition this year, so it's definitely been.
Yeah, I just would love like that network part of it to be like, we got this,
Yeah.
county, like don't worry about it, because farmers and customers really value these programs. So if we can not waste any money and be really efficient, it'd be great.
Thank you all. We're coming up to just an hour. If there are more questions, you can certainly put them in the chat and email them to us. We will follow up on a couple of these that were just noted. But otherwise, I think we'll end it here. And yeah, just reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, we look forward to your applications on November 4th or by November 4th.
Thanks for the session. That was good.
Thank you all.
You all.
Yes, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.